Okay, everybody, and welcome to today's In Conversation with Lucia Bizikova, who is one of our alumni who graduated from the LLM in 2017 and since 2019 has been an associate in international arbitration at DLA Piper. Thanks for offering your insights, Lucia. I thought we'd start with given that the international arbitration is such a keen interest amongst particularly our postgraduate law students, why don't you tell us what the work is really like and if there was any sort of surprises or unexpected elements to the nature of the work for you?
Thank you, David, and hi, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to share my views and experience. It's always great to be back in Cambridge, even if virtually, so hi to all LLM students. As to your question, before I started working in London, first as a trainee and then as an associate, I've actually had prior experience working as an intern in different law firms, both in Paris and also in London. So I knew how the practice and how work and life at the law firm works. So from my perspective, there were no real shockers. It's a cyclical and sometimes a bit unexpected kind of work. Sometimes you have to work hard, sometimes you have to do late hours, but there are also times, depending on in which phase of the development your matters are, that you're slightly less busy. So I think I was very much prepared for that kind of dynamics. But perhaps the biggest difference when I compare my intern experiences and my associate experiences is that as an intern, there is as much as one can do, and there is a limit to the tasks that one can be asked to do. Research is very common, helping putting together notes and presentations, even client pitches is common. Sometimes you do get to do the drafting. That's really the best thing an intern can wish to do. But as internships tend to be short, you don't see matters develop. You're not necessarily always involved in different stages of the proceedings. And as an associate, when you have longer time to work in the team and to work on the matter, you actually do see more of what's going on. You can observe and participate in a matter at different stages of the proceedings. You have more clarity on what's going on, and obviously even the different works and types of tasks you are asked are more developed, more complex. My best personal experience so far, I think, was having the opportunity to do an advocacy in front of an ICSID tribunal in an investor state arbitration, which was really brilliant. And this is something which I've never done before. But I'm still learning a lot. There is still so many things I haven't done yet. So I'm still, trying to figure out what to do next. And I'm looking forward to my new experiences.
Is there one key skill or interest that you rely on, that you have, that is incredibly valuable with the work? I know there'll be a multitude of them, but is there one that you find is your bedrock?
I would say perseverance, I think, or, really trying to work hard and not giving up, even if you're going through difficult moments, the ability to carry on and to I guess be even resistant when there are stressful times. That's something which I think is really useful for me. And I'm a very organized person. Somebody once told me that I am an organization freak. So that helps as well if you're dealing with 200 of emails coming through your mailbox in a day. Being organized helps.
That's a good insight, so thanks for that. You touched on the route to qualification that you took with the training contract, and I know I know you did a number of back schemes and internships that you've alluded to before going into the training contract application. Let's talk about that a little bit and break it down. How did you go about getting that specific range of work experience that you got? Because you might want to mention what they were, and they were very focused and they were very concentrated. Was there a secret to the way you managed to be so successful with that?
I don't think there is a secret to it. So before I started my LLM in Cambridge, I studied at Sciences Po in Paris. And during my time in Paris, I did an internship at a French law firm called Gilles Loiret Noël. They also actually have an office here in London, but that was in the M&A team. So I initially started as a corporate lawyer almost. I didn't like it much, and then I kind of derailed more to the arbitration world. I then did an internships at Linklaters in Paris, which I, however, managed to secure because I was actually awarded a scholarship by Linklaters that funded part of my master's studies in Paris, and a part of that was also the internship. So that was, I guess, slightly easier in that respect. And after my LLM, actually, even before I started the training contract, I interned at Queen Emmanuel in London, and after that at Sherman in London, and then I started my training contract at DLA Piper. And the way to secure these internships, I think first, people just have to do their research. There is a number of firms which, both in Paris, in London, and in all other cities, which will rely on interns or paralegals. Sometimes it's difficult to distinguish the roles, but essentially or often they're very same or very similar. They will advertise them online. I think Arnold and Porter is an excellent example because there is always an open position. I see it on my LinkedIn pop up every now and then, but there are many others which, because maybe they're American or because of how their structure works and how their teams are made, they might not have trainees, so they need interns. And arbitration, actually, specifically because it's so international, is a very good example of possibly being slightly easier to get an internship as opposed to maybe project finance. So people just need to, look out, use LinkedIn, other social media, check out websites of the firms to see if there are any hints, because oftentimes those firms will have a separate link for apply for positions, or we have paralegal intern jobs. So it's just that. And then word of mouth as well. I'm sure there are other LLM alumni and students who would have done something like this. So it's always useful to find them, reach out, have a quick chat, and try to find opportunities this way. And as to training contracts, I think I can be very brief because I followed the advice of you, David, and of University of Cambridge Career Services. I attended the law fair in October. I did my research, look up the firms, and then applied pretty much as any other students, LLMs and LLBs as well. Attended some open days, did some VAC schemes, and managed to secure a couple of offers. So in that respect, I was very lucky, but specifically training contract, I didn't do anything unusual. I really followed the very traditional routes that the firms advertise and students often take on.
That's good to know. Was it frustrating, to put it bluntly, was it frustrating during the training contract experience? Our LLMs often come with a good deal more experience behind them and aspirations which extend to starting quite senior roles with responsibility straight away, and yet the qualification route requires this 4-seat or 6-seat rotation through 2 years of what would now be called qualified work experience. How did you find managing that?
I think frustrating is a strong word. I would perhaps look at it as, are you a person who sees the glass half empty or half full? So yes, it did feel sometimes frustrating that I was an intern, having had over 2 years experience before I started. Sorry, I said intern, I meant trainee.
Trainee, yeah.
Sometimes it did feel frustrating. However, my prior experience also meant that I knew how to get around. I knew it took me less time to understand the internal systems, things as simple as, using DIT, how to do research, how to do certain things. Many of the tasks I was asked to do, I didn't do for the first time. So perhaps I got less comments than some of my friends and other fellow trainees who were having literally their first job ever. And this is something which your more senior colleagues will see. So if you're a quick learner or if you've had prior experience, it will show, and you will be able to see it in the type of work which comes to you. So people in this way really do filter their juniors, and suddenly I found myself having tasks which actually from my first seat were compared to an associate level. And it also then depends on how you develop your relationships with your partners and your senior colleagues. But of course, it's always the trainees who will have to do research or maybe due diligence, or who will have to do bundling in arbitration or disputes specifically, which is always the most feared task. So there are certain tasks which nobody will escape, and you will have to do them because it's just the nature of the hierarchy and how law firms really work as businesses. At the same time, if people are keen or experienced and want to get out there and do more, there is scope for that, there is possibility for that to happen. So if you are more experienced than others, don't look at it as it's frustrating. Look at it as it's going to be an extra opportunity for you maybe to distinguish yourself among your peers and do the work which they won't be doing because they will need to improve the basics, which you will already have.
That's a great insight about maturity and experience bringing higher quality of work. It happens throughout the city, I think, and students can sometimes forget that it's the nuances of the quality of the work that you'll be given, which is really important. Just an opportunity for you, I know, to mention something that you might have wanted to, which was the other routes in to working in arbitration in a firm like DLA Piper.
Yes, absolutely. And I also wanted to say that the fact that I did a training contract, and many LLMs or other people do, it doesn't mean that it's the only route. Although it might be the most obvious, but another possibility, for example, is to do an internship somewhere in a firm in London. People will already know you or get to know you, and then try to get a training contract at the firm you were interning. In my case, it didn't work out that way because when I started interning, I already had my training contract offer. But I know some other people who were more lucky this way. So if you don't have the response you wanted from a direct training contract application, take another year, try to work at firms and try applying internally, and then great things can happen, and it can even make the processes go smoother and faster than for people who don't have a professional experience at that particular firm. That's one. Another one is for foreign lawyers to come back to the UK. And again, I know of some of my friends and former colleagues from the LLM who wanted and tried to secure a training contract, but unfortunately didn't manage to. Then they went home to their respective jurisdictions. And as they wanted or persevered or kept looking at the possibility of coming back to London, it actually eventually happened. Someone I met very recently, and completely randomly on my walk to work, actually told me that she was working at Freshfields in Germany, and she actually secured her training contract after her Freshfields experience in Germany, and now she's back in London, so that's possible too. Foreign requalification and doing the equivalent of, I think, the SQE now, because it used to be something else before, but now the system has changed slightly. But qualifying as you're a lawyer in your jurisdiction and then doing the conversion and coming back is also something some people do. And finally, keep your mind open. There are other arbitration careers that are available, and not all of them are necessarily at law firms. Working at an arbitral institution, for example, is something I've never done, and to a certain extent, I regret it, or I wish I had that experience. And I'm even thinking of maybe at some point I will stop being an associate, go to an institution, and then come back, or maybe stay if I like it. So that's a very great and a unique experience that not everybody has, and it will add value to what you do. Working for a local government or for your national government, if you're interested in particular investor state arbitration, having the opportunity or the experience for working for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for example, is something extremely valuable and something which very, very few people have. And if you look at some of the very famous partners out there these days, many of them do have that background. Again, something I haven't done. but I know of people who do that and who either stay because they like it so much or then go back to arbitration. And one last or two last very quickly, which I mentioned, is international institutions for obvious reasons, and then also third-party funders. And this is something which is picking up immensely, and we see it in practice all the time. And then there are client events organized all the time. Sorry. We are very ecological, so the lights went off.
Smart building.
Might happen again. It might happen again. Third-party funders as well. And the way these companies work is that they invest in disputes which they think are likely to be successful and bring in some money, but to be able to make those decisions, they rely on the knowledge and analysis of disputes and arbitration lawyers to make that informed guess or prediction of this is this much likely to succeed, this is not. And again, those are mostly former arbitration lawyers who do that. So it's another very, very interesting career option for people who are interested in arbitration. It's not only law firms.
Thank you for broadening everybody's insights onto that. That was really valuable. And during the course of it, you mentioned the SQE, which you're quite right, has now replaced what existed before, in brackets, the QLTS, for foreign qualified lawyers. And I noticed that you have been in the first cohort who piloted the SQE for the SRA when they were testing it, whilst you were on your LPC course. Any insights you want to offer the students who'll be listening to this, because it is a new thing and there's very different methodology involved?
Yes, of course. I was actually a guinea pig, so the version I have done is not necessarily the right version, which was ultimately set in place. I think they amended it slightly. But I think the SRA is trying to make the qualification process more similar or more akin to a New York bar of sorts, or to a test-driven rather than the experience-driven training contract. Whether we will get there or not, I'm not sure. It's not for me to say. But if there are any LLM students who are thinking about doing the SQE or who are maybe worried, I will say this: it is a test as any other. The one I've done had mostly multiple choice questions with options A, B, C, D, possibly E. There was a written part as well, but I think that got scrapped in the end. So the written part possibly doesn't exist, or doesn't exist in the form I took it, that's for sure. And if you are stressed about taking the test, I honestly wouldn't be. I think that people who are usually studying, or students who are studying at Cambridge and who are at the LLM, are experienced students who would have done many, many tests in their academic career, and the SQE did not surprise me in any way, or it didn't bring anything unexpected. Many of the questions were actually very commonsensical, and they did not do case law questions. So you will never be asked about this principle comes from which case, or name the case which established this, and then give you 5 different cases. Rather, they will try to test the principles in more practical way. And oftentimes the answer is almost commonsensical, really. It's about applying the knowledge. So I didn't think that the SQE exam was something which would be horribly difficult for a student with a similar background and experience in doing tests that what I've had by the time I've taken it.
That was very valuable. Thanks for that. Let's move on a little bit. Apart from the work experience that you had, which would have, I'm sure, attracted the attention of recruiters, because it was, as you outlined, quite impressive. What really worked in terms of building your profile in the eyes of a recruiter or an assessor? What do you know impressed them, or what advice would you give students for hoping to stand out?
I'm actually, you know what, I will contradict you a little bit here, David. I'm not sure if I really impressed the recruiters in the way you describe, because I felt as an LLM student, as an international person coming from a different jurisdiction than the one I studied. I'm not French, despite the fact that I've studied in France. I felt that it actually confused recruiters in a way.
Well, thanks
You
for
know?
that. Yeah. Okay.
So, and this is something which many international students, we kind of secretly say that our success rate in our training contract application is not as high as when you compare it to maybe LLB students or languages students. I don't know why, you know, I don't really see into the system, but I just wanted to caveat the fact that
Oh,
it
very
really
fair.
depends. If you had asked me this question, you know, 4 years ago, five, I would probably, you know, I would almost say that the fact that I'm international and have prior experience is playing against me because they don't know what to make of me. But regardless of that, and sorry, really about
No,
my
it's a very, very fair comment. The system, as we all know, is geared up for something far more straightforward in terms of an LLB student doing an insight scheme and a VAC
yeah.
scheme and then a training contract. So anything that deviates beyond that does require a little more application from the assessors. It's true.
A little bit, really, really a little bit. And on that note, I
Mm.
will just say one of the best advices I was given when I was going through the process is don't take it personally. You will get a lot of no's. I'm sure everybody gets at least one, you know. I don't know
Mm.
anyone who would have said I've been successful in all my applications. It just doesn't happen because the
Mm.
system is so random, and even the recruitment teams, you know, like they go through hundreds of applications. Sometimes they just might be tired and then they might miss
Mm.
your
Mm.
genius, you know. So,
Yeah.
or maybe
Mm.
sometimes they've just already looked at 1,000 applications and
Mm.
they've taken so many people on that your came in a bit too late and it wasn't meant to be. So don't take it personally.
Mm.
And don't let yourself be down by
Mm.
maybe some initial no's. It's just honestly part of the process. We've all been there. But regarding the profile building, I think there are quite a few things which people can make. But I also want to emphasize that there is no right and wrong way of doing things. It's very personal. It will really be very personal to everyone. So whatever I have done might not really fit somebody else, or they might not be comfortable doing things I've done. So, you know, find your own way of getting into or putting your foot into the door, and it's going to be the right way. I can tell you how I did it, but I've done it, but don't feel like if I don't do these things, I will not succeed. It's not true.
Fair point.
But one of the things people can start doing already at university or while they're studying is maybe start publishing articles. And those articles don't need to be in, you know, big reputable journals or Kluver blog or something like that. It's great if they manage to, or if they have a good topic and they want to develop it in that way. But for many people, the first experiences in publishing will be at a local university journal or something smaller, or maybe a blog post, and then they will kind of progressively move into publishing different things, larger pieces, things like that. There is a number of essay competitions as well. People
Mm.
might want to consider applying for. Some of them are for original pieces, but some of them are also for their thesis and dissertation. So if it's work that's already done, send it out there, you know, submit it. So I have a few names which I've written down, but again, do your research, look out for more opportunities. The young ICA, ICCA, do an annual essay competition, as does the LCIA with the Gillis Wetter Memorial Prize. I think that runs bi-annually, actually. The Institute for Transnational Arbitration, the ITA, again, another annual essay competition. And DICC actually has a prize on business law, which includes arbitration, for doctoral dissertations and for long essays. So this is what I was mentioning. If you have, you know, a dissertation sitting on your drawer,
Mm.
send it out. For example, very recently, last month, I think, the British Institute for International and Comparative Law sent out a request for short opinion piece on I think confidentiality, possibly in international arbitration, with a view to select two candidates who would kind of debate and present their views alongside with Maxi Scherer, for example, in a kind of debate led by young lawyers or young academics, and people got selected and did participate. So there opportunities like this. Another one is to get involved in opportunities and arbitration groups run at your university. So I know that at Cambridge we have the Cambridge Arbitration Day, and during my time as an LLM student, I was one of the co-organizers, and I was even the co-convener for the attached ICC, Young ICC event, which was run in 2017. So 2018, 17. So that's another great opportunity, not only to have some exposure, but also to meet people and practitioners from London and beyond, who come and participate at those conferences. And because you are organizing or you are a member of the committee, it gives you also the chance to see them how you work, the kind of professional contact, emails, the courtesy, that kind of thing. And then if you happen to bond or develop a personal connection, it can then help you getting those internships, which we spoke about earlier. This is actually what happened with me. So my internship at Queen Emmanuel, I secured mostly or very largely due to my professional friendship with Tim Podden, who was a counsel at Queen at the time. He's at a different firm now. But we actually stayed in touch until today, and we speak fairly regularly. And that's a relationship I developed during my LLM in Cambridge. So it's important, and it's something you can start doing step by step.
That's a brilliant introduction to the next question, really, which is the importance of these professional relationships that you can build up from the very start of your course at Cambridge. Just to take a step back and talk a bit more generally about how to go about reaching out to lawyers, and particularly 3 areas which I know you've reflected on your LinkedIn profile, which I will give students the address to, and I would encourage them to look at it. But the network side of networking, the mentoring, and also the participation in these professional groups that I know are so important for this type of work. So what would you say about networking, mentoring, and professional groups?
Sure. So networking, first of all, networking doesn't only mean that you need to try to go out to all the partners and make friends and be, brilliant and insightful and this great person they want to hire. Networking starts from the bottom up in a way. So all your colleagues and friends in Cambridge are potentially future lawyers, future partners, future secretaries at big institutions. So make sure you take some time off and enjoy those connections. It's actually only a year. It will fly. You'll see. And it's a very limited opportunity to make friends, because those friends will grow together with you in your career. And next thing you know, you're the next generation of partners. So, and this is something which, even people more senior say when they discuss how did I get my first client? I don't know. I don't have my first client yet. But many people with whom I've spoken said, actually, my first client was my friend who we've studied together, who started as a lawyer and then went on to this energy company or telecoms company or wherever. And then they needed legal advice and they called me. And this is how it happens. So don't forget that networking is not only about meeting your seniors, it's actually about making those connections at the same level. Now, networking with the seniors is something which we all do and are keen on doing. So as I said, if you are a member, or if you can co-organize events, even small lectures, small seminars, it can be a lunch talk. It doesn't need to be something big. That's a good opportunity to reach out to someone you're interested in, and then try to keep in contact, or ask them for a coffee or something like that. Discuss something, and you may follow up after that, or if you're on LinkedIn, comment on their post or like their post, and don't let it die out in a way. Try to maintain that relationship. That's one way. Another way really is about you just simply contacting people you're interested in or you want their insights. And I understand that people are sometimes not willing to do that. They feel a bit awkward, and it's really a personal style thing. What I say to my friends who are like, no, it feels weird, I don't want to contact someone, they're too senior. I'm like, what's the worst thing that can happen? they will not respond. They don't keep a list of these people who contacted them and they shouldn't have. Like, it doesn't happen like that. The worst thing that can happen is they're busy, they will not respond, and they will forget, and that's the end. So, but sometimes they absolutely will respond, and they might have that coffee with you. And this has happened with me again, because sometimes, or it has happened that I've reached out. And again, those connections are relationships which, if there is that connection, if you click, it can develop into a professional friendship or into bringing new opportunities, or not. Not everything is about opportunities, of course. So I think that's that on networking. And then you asked about mentorship.
Mentoring, yep.
That's actually very similar or very related in a way. I'd say there are two ways of finding your mentors, and perhaps I should have started by saying it is important to have mentors. Each of us have mentors. I've mentioned Tim, and Tim, until today, I do consider as one of my mentors, as is, Kate Cervantes Knox, which is my, or the partner, now a special counsel with whom I work here at DLA. But so what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that many of the mentors which you will have in your studies and career are mentors you find yourself through these networking opportunities or through working together. Right. And then suddenly the person is actually, it's not something rigid or structured. They're just trying to help. They have an interest in you and in your career. They share their experience, and those are people from whom you learn and who will help you and who will push you become the professional you want to become, and they will push you to your best potential. And many people, or most of the mentors, actually people do find on their own as the career progresses. But if you're struggling, or if you feel that you don't have those mentors now and you need them, or it would feel helpful to have them, there are also many mentorship programs which are slightly more structured or artificial in that way, because they pair mentors and mentees together. But different programs try to do it in a different way to really encourage natural conversation. And I'll mention three which you might want to look into, but there are others in arbitration. So one of them is a mentorship program run annually, again, by London VIAP, London Very Young Arbitration Practitioners Group. Another one is the Young ICA, that's again the ICCA mentorship program, which is very famous and run annually. And the last one is REAL's, REAL group mentorship program that focuses specifically on diversity in international arbitration. And now that I'm speaking about REAL, I'll address your last question very briefly. It's these groups, different professional groups. There are really very many. I've already gave a list to David, so reach out to David, and if not, reach out to me. I'm happy to send you some tips, but they operate mostly on social media and LinkedIn specifically, but also through their own websites. And they offer different kinds of things. Sometimes they're specifically targeted at specific people, such as the REAL, which is the racial diversity, or arbitral women, which is specifically for women in arbitration, or campaign for greener arbitration, which is about sustainability. But there are many others which are either targeted at juniors or just arbitration in general, or a specific region. So try to find out who they are. If they're on LinkedIn, follow them, look at their posts, and oftentimes they will advertise either different networking opportunities for you to meet with other peers or seniors, sometimes publishing opportunities, or these essay competitions I've mentioned, sometimes mentorship programs, but also different things, webinars, seminars, meetings, apps, conferences. So it's just, it's something which I have in my LinkedIn feed. Every now and often it pops up. I'm interested, I join, I'm not, it just kind of, I scroll right through it. But I think it's a community, and it does show. And depending on personal styles of people, they are either more or less involved in the community, but it is good to know that it is out there. There are people who've been in your position before, and many of them would be very happy to, give you advice, or have a coffee or have a chat. So check those groups out, and if you like some, join, try to participate in their activities.
Last couple of questions now, and I think you've already partly answered the first one, which was, how do you keep up to date? Obviously, LinkedIn has now really assumed quite a prominence of an easy, convenient way of keeping up to date by people who are broadcasting to you. But in terms of you taking things on that you know are important to the work, how do you keep up to date with what you need to know?
LinkedIn is really a great tool, but on that I will say it's a double-edged sword. It can, in a similar way to other social media, Instagram, it can lead to too much stress. It can lead to some people thinking, oh, look at them, they're out there, they're already speaking at conferences, they're publishing articles. I'm not, So again, I'm saying this with a pinch of salt. And here we go again. It's about personal approach and what people are comfortable. So don't let yourself kind of completely spiral into the LinkedIn hole, because it can, it really can swallow you. But if it's used in moderation, I think it's a very useful tool because of this. And oftentimes, my peers and law firms alike will advertise articles and blogs, which are very often on the most recent legal developments, because they want the clients to know, they want the market to know. So oftentimes I found really resourceful information on LinkedIn because somebody posted about it or wanted the world to know that this is what they're doing. So that's one obvious way of doing that. Another thing which I do, I am subscribed for a number of newsletters of different either publications or legal texts. So Mundi, I'm sure everyone in arbitration at LLM now will be familiar with Mundi. If you're not, you really do have to check out what they do, what they offer, and the kind of work they put in. So they have a newsletter in which they publicize, I think, the most important case developments and what's going on really, and recent significant things in the arbitration world. And you don't need to click on every article. I certainly don't. I rarely ever do. But it's useful just to have those headlines and at least to have those ideas like, oh, this is what's going on. And if there is a big decision or something I'm interested in, I will click. But it's absolutely not always. It's just to kind of do the skimming exercise. The same goes for the GAR, Global Arbitration Review. Their newsletter is also very insightful and useful. And last one, which I actually don't have, but others I know do, is LexisNexis, have a specific arbitration newsletter, which tends to be very on the point. And perhaps the lawyer, actually, sometimes as well. It's quite useful, not only for arbitration, but for the legal market in general, even though I actually, and my firm doesn't subscribe to all lawyers, so I can't read all the articles, but I can see the headlines, even in terms of partner moves, firms merging, firms falling apart, salaries increase, that kind of stuff, the gossip of the legal world. It's, it's something, it takes 30 seconds and it's done, but suddenly,
Well, look, you've been brilliantly insightful up till now, Lucia. So I'm terrifically grateful. I just wanted to sort of leave you with the opportunity of saying, is there finally one piece of advice that makes a difference? That might put you on the spot a little bit, so I'll carry on talking. And thank you for the insight into modern working in the building that you've got as well. Waving at the ceiling is something that
I'm in the office.
Everybody learns to do again. Wave at the ceiling. So finally, a piece of advice that makes a difference.
You know what, I think I would say, and this is something I have to remind myself literally sometimes every day, but it's not a race, it's a marathon. Whatever you do, don't compare yourself to the others. The fact that somebody is an associate in a big arbitration team at 26 and you are at 31, 32, and you're still interning, or you're a trainee or trying to do something like that, it's counterproductive. Don't compare yourself to others. Find your own way of doing things. Find your own personality within the work. And in a way, and I don't want to, end on a very kind of destiny note, but sometimes things happen for a reason. And at least for me, professionally speaking, it always turned out to be this way. So even when I thought I really wanted this, I didn't get it, then I was disappointed, Then another opportunity arose and presented itself, and I might have managed to get the other opportunity, and it actually was great, and it helped me to get where I am, or it changed things for me. So you know, don't be flexible, and kind of go with the flow. Great things will happen to everyone. I'm sure you all have very bright careers ahead of you. System can be frustrating, but you know, it's just patience, deep breath. You'll be fine. As one of my colleagues once told to me when I was, you know, complaining about the horrors of a training contract shortly after my LLM, he said that it's not about the final destination, really, it's about the process, it's about the route, about what you experience. So again, I'm trying to learn that even today, but don't get over fixated by the end result. Try to enjoy the process. And if suddenly in the middle of the process you realize, actually, I might want to do something else or go about it differently, do it. You know, we all will have very long careers ahead. We don't need to do specific things at specific ages, so don't be too hard on yourself.
That's been so helpful, Lucia. Thanks very much for giving us your insights today.
Thank you for having me, Davis. Always a pleasure.